It's full time.
Hi, I'm Shane Crawford. Welcome to Full Time, brought to you by AIA Vitality. As we always do, right at the start of the show, we head to Queensland. We go into the bubble, otherwise known as the hub. Ayrton, Woolley. Hello, mate. How are you?
Going very well, thank you, Shane. How are you?
Coping well, yes. Another great day of footy, some interesting games, and it's all heating up.
Certainly is. What a weekend we've had, and another big weekend coming up. This is the round so far. I guess one match to go tomorrow night with Collingwood and Gold Coast, but some big matches that'll shape the finals, Crawford.
Yeah, absolutely. And just having a look, the Giants and Melbourne, that was a lot of back and forth. Quite a good game to watch. 5 points. Well done to the D's, finding a way to win after a disappointing loss the week before. Adelaide, 3 in a row. What about this against the Blues? A very disappointing Blues. You can't be happy with that. And the Western Bulldogs powering along. Well done to them. They smashed the Hawks early, had the game done and dusted, and they are up and about. So I'll tell you what, it's all heating up. We're going to have a look at the ladder, and this is what it comes down to. The Saints are going to take on the Giants, who are 10th at the moment. And I had Mitch and Matt out the back working away hard, trying to work out the percentage, what the difference in the game score and how that's going to affect St Kilda getting outside of the 8. Well, the Giants have to smash the Saints by 50 points, and that'll affect the percentage, and they'll sneak in. But it's not going to happen. So I think the Saints are locked. They're going to play finals, and it's a great effort. Well done to them. The Bulldogs should win and beat Freo. Well, Freo are very good. Collingwood have destiny in their own hands up against the Gold Coast Suns, which is probably going to be a danger match because I think Gold Coast will want to finish well. And obviously Melbourne are going to take on your beloved Bombers. Although I wouldn't trust the Demons to win, I'm giving the Bombers half a chance. But you would think that the Demons will find a way to win that match. So it's a great end of the season. All those teams trying to sneak into the finals.
Makes it very, very interesting. That Melbourne match is the one that St Kilda will certainly have an eye on. They won't want Melbourne to get off the chain against Essendon, given, as you mentioned, that the percentage will play a big part in whether they make it if St Kilda, of course, gets beaten by GWS, that is. However, but the games today, of course, the Bulldogs have basically put their own destiny in their hands, beating Hawthorn today. Pretty comfortable win, 6 goals, about what you'd expect today, Crawford, given where Hawthorn have been for the past few weeks.
Yeah, what I loved from the win today, even though it was against my beloved Hawks, just the way they went about it. They were up and about early, they dominated, had the game, played on their own terms, and that's a sign of a good side, a side that's really gathering momentum. And is this similar to 2016 when they had premiership glory coming from 8th? I think it is. Their midfield's so strong. They've got so many players they can float through there. They had some new goal kickers up forward today. A lot of their halfbacks pushing hard forward. There was a lot of zip, and they were up and about. The Hawks are a bit disappointing. Played a lot of young kids, but still weren't able to hit the scoreboard. Some of their older players struggled, like they have all year. And, yeah, I think the season can't come to an end quick enough for the Hawks.
It's interesting, isn't it, Shane? And particularly in the last few days when we've found out that Shaun Burgoyne has been re-signed for another year. So he will get past 400 games should he, I guess, stay fit next season. But it's an interesting call from the club to keep him on, isn't it, given that we now think they're probably embarking on a rebuild?
Yeah, I think it raised a few eyebrows, but been such a wonderful contributor. They'll manage him next year. I think his on-field leadership's going to be super important. And, he's great around the football club and obviously from a coaching point of view moving forward. So we wish him all the very best. I was trying to work out how and why they've done it right now when obviously the season's coming so close to an end. And I reckon that means for some of the other older players, that's it, done and dusted, been such wonderful contributors. But I think coming out and making a statement like that, I think that virtually stamps the end of a few careers there. And especially with the list being reduced, you still need to have some of your senior players around, especially with the young kids coming through from a leadership point of view. It's really important, not only on the track, but definitely out on the field. And Shaun Burgoyne will lead the way. So it'll be interesting to see which players are the ones that they decide to move on after wonderful careers.
Well, Alastair Clarkson did make the point during the week that he'd actually have to tell the players before the final game, because of the hub situation, they wouldn't see them for any period of time for normal exit meetings where players would normally get told about their futures. So a lot of these guys could actually find out in a couple of days' time before the final game that they won't be playing. Crawford, would you have re-signed Shaun Burgoyne? I know you say it's great for the club and his leadership's great, we know that, but would you have done it if you were managing Hawthorn's list?
Oh, well, it just depends on the players that you're moving on. As I said, you've got to have, and I know Ross Lyon was really strong on this, you've got to have some strong leaders around the football club, even if they're not playing each week. That you can still get so much out of being around those type of players. So I was trying to work out what is going on, why did they announce it this week? And all I can come up with is, you know, they're going to close some wonderful careers this week. They're going to tell them. And the good thing is we'll be able to give them off a great send-off. They've been wonderful warriors. Which players is that going to be? I don't know. But, you know, Graham Wright's got a lot of work to do. Alastair Clarkson, they're going to have to rejuvenate and reshuffle that list, and they're going to get themselves competitive again, because I'm sure they don't want to stay down too low, and they'll want to get back up and about, especially playing at home at the MCG in front of the crowd next year. They'll be wanting to win a lot of games.
Well, just before we hear from Alastair Clarkson, Crawford, briefly, some trade talk, I guess, with a lot of those senior Hawks, the ones that have still perhaps got a little bit of currency, whether it's Jack Gunston or Isaac Smith or Luke Bruce. But you've perhaps got another name that you think might have a bit more currency, perhaps a surprise name that Hawthorn might have to consider trading.
Look, I think when it comes to trading, and I think majority of the clubs are the same, like every player is up for trade. So it's not about which player. Every player is up for trade if there's the best deal that can be possibly done to help the football club move forward. So players are very aware of that. Often discussions with coaches, managers, players are aware that, you know, if you get thrown up and the club's going to get a couple of first-round picks and it's going to secure their future, you're off. And that's just the way it is. That's probably why we see players move around so much these days, because you don't have much control, because the club virtually takes control of your destiny a bit, especially if there's going to be a better deal. I think Chad Wingard, I'm not saying you want to trade him, but I reckon clubs would probably see him as the most important Hawthorn player, because he's a wonderful ball user, plays across half forward. His first 5 or 6 games this year were right up there with the very best, and then he's obviously had a big drop away, but he's played a lot more through the middle. He's played half forward. He's a beautiful kick for goal. And it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of clubs come asking about Chad Wingard and whether or not they can get him onto their list.
Really interesting call, because they only got him, 2 years ago, Shane, so it'd be a big U-turn from Hawthorn, but obviously they've reassessed where they are at now in terms of their list and heading into the future. This was Alastair Clarkson after the game this afternoon, explaining why they've re-signed Shaun Burgoyne.
I think that'll be there in the back of his mind, but from our point of view or whatever, you know, the number isn't as important as it is just what contribution can he make to the club. If he happens to get there, terrific. I think he's got 12 games to go or 11 games to go or somewhere thereabouts. So he knows his performance needs to be on merit, and if he's playing well enough, he'll get there. If he's not, then he realises that the club's and its ongoing prospects are the most important thing. So, but you know, there's only 5 players in the game that have ever achieved that feat, and it'd be a special feat. But that can't be the sole reason that it drives the decision making. There's a whole heap of them, and probably the Indigenous space in terms of our footy club and the role that he can play for us long term is probably the most significant one.
Well, also from that Hawthorn Western Bulldogs game today, some unfortunate news for Toby McLean, who's done a suspected ACL. It's likely he'll head back to Melbourne for scans and then surgery, the Dogs have said tonight. But there were some big injuries this round, Crawford. Could, I guess, affect a few sides heading into finals. Richmond, those 2 big ones with Soldo and Lynch. Jeremy McGovern, of course, from West Coast. Harris Andrews from Brisbane. Which of those are you particularly worried about for those teams?
Well, when you look at Richmond, a couple of real key tools. Lynch is a super important player for them, gives them real strong structure. But Soldo does a lot of tireless work around the middle. You know, he's super important for the way they set up, and he brings all those midfielders into play. So they're 2 that you worry about. Well, one out for the year, so you need Nankervis to really step up now. But you want Lynch back and firing. Otherwise, the opposition will put a lot of time and effort into to Jack Riewoldt, so you might be able to take him out of the game. But if Lynch comes back in, it makes it very, very difficult to work out which tool they're going to go to all the time, and especially when they work so well together. So they'll be back. Look, this time of year, it gets tough. And going to the finals, coaches have really tough decisions to make, and players are responsible for putting their hand up as well. So you can't put your hand up and say, yeah, I can be a part of it, and then break down in a final. Otherwise, the coaches turn on you, your players turn on you. You've got to make the right call, and you've got to do the team call. So if you think you can contribute better than, you know, the 22nd person, yep, put your hand up and get out there. But players are much better at understanding the situation and know that players and coaches really look down on you if you make the wrong call, especially if you're thinking from your own point of view, which is a selfish way to look at it.
Well, there was another match today, of course, Carlton and Adelaide. And I don't know if it's a surprise result, given Adelaide are now the September specialists, 3-0 in September, the Crows. But at one stage, they were leading that game by about 43 points. So a really disappointing performance from Carlton, Crawford.
Yeah, they've conceded 5 goals in 4 games this year at the very start of the game. So it's not good enough from the Blues' point of view. Very, very disappointing. They'd worked so hard this year to gather some respect, and it's funny how it works. But within one game, a couple of quarters, you can lose a lot of respect. And you just got to come to play. It just shows you can't sort of live with what happened the week before and with wins that you've had along the way. You've got to keep backing up. It really is a marathon, the whole AFL season, and they let themselves down. Well done to Adelaide, 3 in a row, an amazing effort. It was only a few weeks ago we were thinking they weren't going to win a game. So well done to the Adelaide Football Club, well done to all the young kids. Himmelberg's showing a lot of form. There's a lot of good youngsters there starting to really believe in themselves. They'll have a pre-season. They'll come back new players, and they're going to be players that are going to push Adelaide back up the ladder over the next few years, which is great. But a very disappointing game today from the Blues. Yes, they made a run in the second half, but you'd always expect that. But I'll tell you what, David Teague must be pulling his hair out. It's not good enough, and it's all about attitude. You've got to come to play, and you need to play from the very first bounce.
We talk about David Teague, Crawford. I know a lot of Carlton supporters tonight who are a little bit disgruntled with the messaging that's come out of Carlton, just like Essendon fans with John Worsfold. This was David Teague after the game declaring he doesn't think the Blues are too far away from where they want to be.
It's a hard one because I felt like we've been in every single game this year. I don't think it's a big step. I think we're not far off, and our fans may be a bit disappointed because we haven't been able to execute. But for periods of games we have. So I think our players have belief in it. Our next step has been able to do it for longer and to do it more consistently, and particularly when the pressure's really on, we need to be able to stay calm and get the job done. And right now we've probably shown that we haven't been able to do that. But in terms of the distance from there, I think I really believe in this group.
Well, Crawford, I don't know about you, but if I was a Carlton supporter, I don't know if I'd be copying that sort of comment, particularly after how disappointing that was today.
No, I'll tell you what, you're a mind reader, because I know we've jumped the gun, but you obviously know what I'm doing with my roast. Have you got some idea what I'm going to launch into today about?
No idea, Crawford. What's happening?
Well, I think it's time for the roast, and you've led the way.
Yeah, look, it's not a great look. It's a really disappointing performance.
Yeah, look, it is. You know, it's still a work in progress for us as a club. You know, but
you know, we've had a jammed up 14 days, and I can't question some of the effort out there today.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the debate was about. So our focus tonight was to continue to work on playing the style of footy we want to play.
All right, roast time. I'll tell you what, seriously, Ayrton, Woolley, this is not good. Now, the coaches, yes, it's a difficult job. It's a very difficult job at times. But guess what? The supporters, we need some strong messaging, especially after losses. We don't need you to sit there and go, yeah, we're working on things and things are a bit tough. No, when players aren't doing the right thing 100% of the time, you've got to launch into them. We love when coaches launch into players and really try and get the best out of them, and we need that at press conferences. You've got to be up and about. You've got to give us a bit of life. The supporters are hanging on every word. We want to see that the coach is driving the ship and he's got a bit of go in him, okay? So, for example, you've just had a loss and it's unacceptable. The question comes at me, do you know what? Today was not good enough. Our supporters deserve so much better than that. Our players didn't put their head over the footy. They're much better than that. I know they can do that, but for some reason we weren't focused. That's not their fault. I'm going to take responsibility, but on the weekend, guess what? I'm going to make sure we're back next week. We're ready to fire. We're going to show how much heart this side has got and where we're going, and I promise it won't happen again. Give us a bit of life. Just give us a bit of life. And do you know what? The best media performer from a coaching point of view this year, Ayrton Woolley, is who?
Great question. Who? Nathan Buckley? Well, you throw me on the spot there. You obviously had a
He's
name
in the top six, yep. Who else? Come on. Is who?
Oh, you're going to say Clarko, eh?
Chris Fagan. No, Chris Fagan. Why? Because Chris Fagan, he has a smile on his face. He gets extremely disappointed. He's frustrated at his players. He comes to life during the game. He's dancing around on the boundary line. We need to see that. Supporters need to see that, okay? And you need to give us something, especially after bad losses. We're hurting. We're stuck away in our little hub in Victoria. We need to see the coaches fire up and show they're not going to accept mediocrity, and that's what's happening at the moment. We've got too many excuses, and as a player you're always told there's no excuse. You've got to just keep backing up. You've got to keep going. Why do Richmond, why do Geelong, why do Port Adelaide keep winning from week to week when it's really tough? Because mentally they're switched on and they're bringing their very best, and you can throw Brisbane in there as well. They need to lift some of the coaches. They need stronger messaging, and I want it to happen now, especially when the season's almost over, and you've got to show that pre-season's going to be tough, it's going to be hard, and it's going to get the clubs back on track. Is that enough?
I want to run through some brick walls after that. I would have loved to have seen a few post-match media conferences out at Mona, Crawford, if that ever got off the ground. But
give us a bit of life. You can't just sit there and go, yeah, we're working on things, and yeah, it wasn't good. I'll tell you what, do you know why you're losing? Is because if the coach was talking to me like that before a game, I'd be going, all right, who wants to play Norton crosses? Who wants to twiddle the thumbs? You've got to give a bit of life. You've got to get a coach right in there, spinning everywhere. You've got to be on edge, and you've got to want to run through brick walls and help each other 100% of the game. Non-negotiable.
He did just show John Worsfold there. I know Matthew Lloyd was very strong on where Essendon's at today, but interesting, Woosha said fans need more patience for success. David Teague today saying we're not that far away, but they seem miles away. Who would you rather be out of those two clubs? Crawford, bit of a question without notice.
I think Essendon's got,
one, isn't it?
Essendon's got the best lists, but they can be very wishy-washy. We know their very best is very exciting. I love McGrath as a player and Merritt. I think the Blues are building the right way. They've got good young kids. They're just not ready. Their key position forwards are very good. They don't have Curnow up and about at the moment, but he could be, you know, a real difference. And I would probably lean towards the Blues, but they've got to fix the first quarters. You've got to be in this. You've got to be in the game early. If you're not, it's such a hard game to try and peg back a lead. You're always chasing, and it's very, very tiring. It catches up with you in the end. So that's all upstairs. That's all in the head. You've got to make sure, okay, before the start of the game, Monday and Tuesday, you got them fired, ready to go, and they've got to start the games. Well, it gives you confidence, gets your teammates into the game. Scoreboard pressure is so important. And away you go. You just build from there. Chasing. When you're 5 goals down, it's so hard to come back from there. It's almost impossible, although they've won a few games from behind. So...
No, good point, Crawford. We'll move on to the Sydney-Brisbane game now. And Brisbane, a little bit of a low-scoring game, that one. The Lions leading by 13 points at three-quarter time. They need to win, obviously, that one, given how tight it is at the top. You'd expect them to get the job done. Yeah,
do you know what? I've loved what Sydney have done this year. Yes, they haven't won a lot of matches, but the effort's been there. They've got young talent coming through. John Longmire, he gets animated. He's up and about. You see him in the coach's box. He stresses you out. But you know he's really riding every bump, every kick, every handball. And, you know, it's been a good season from their point of view. Anyway, we're getting right onto the 4 points. I know I've been rambling on. I'm up and about. I'm fired up. Come on, coaches, lift. Give us more, especially post-match. The Dogs, don't discount the Dogs. 2016 all over again. They are coming, and I like what they're doing through the middle. The Cats, 9 lives. There's still a chance. They had an off game. Gary Rowan coming back into that team. Ablett coming back into that team. There's still very much a chance to win the flag for me. Port Adelaide, where's the respect? They're sitting on top of the ladder. Everyone's saying that they're not going to win the flag. All they can do is keep winning. And they won well on the weekend. They keep getting the 4 points. Don't discount Port Adelaide. And Hub Life, the AFL, you know, Eddie McGuire was saying that we should have chaperones and police following players on their 6 to 8 weeks off. Are we crazy? These are adults. These are people who we want to stand on their own 2 feet. We want them to be great, respectable role models. And yet we want people to follow them around because we're worried about them getting a bit loose. Are we serious? We live in a cocoon when you're in an AFL club. You know, you get looked after and you get handed, there's your clothes, there's your socks, good luck, here's your clean boots. It's about time you let the players go and stand on their own 2 feet, learn how life is outside of their little bubble and understand that you've got to act in a respectful way, but most importantly, learn to live like everyone else, because one day you're going to be like everyone else when your career's over. So AFL, back off, let the players go, have some freedom, trust them, let them develop. They'll come back better. Sure, there might be 1 or 2 who make a mistake, but guess what? We'll penalise them, they'll learn from that, and we get on with things. So
your Hawthorn side was just full of choir boys, Crawford, back in the day?
What are you going on about? What do you mean we're choir boys? I'll tell you what, no, Alastair Clarkson, when Buddy Franklin came in, okay, and he had a little reputation of being a little wayward, but he was an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid, and at one stage the footy club were going, look, you know, we think he's having way too much fun, you know, socially. He's going out and he's having a few drinks and he's having some late nights. And I, being an older player at the time, go, he needs to do that. I'm all for that. All he needs to do is learn how to go out, when is the respectful time to come home, and when is the right time to go out and socialise. And guess what? He's turned out to be an okay player. In the end, when Luke Hodge was finishing up at the football club, that club had a drinking ban was non-existent at that football club, because everyone was taught how to go out and act in a responsible way. If you wanted to consume a little bit of alcohol at the right time, you're allowed to do that. And just act like everyone else does, you know the right time to pull up, go home, but learn to live like everyone else. So I think there's something in that. It's worked for them for a long, long time. And the AFL players, they're big and strong people who know the right from wrong. Yeah, sure, some make mistakes. It's been the history of this game forever. You know, we've seen a lot of players make mistakes, but guess what? We often see the very best of them after they make those mistakes. You know, we saw Stevie Johnson. He was a player who, you know, lost his way a little bit. Geelong came down nice and hard on him, got himself back on track, had a wonderful career, he was a great player, and he's a very nice man. So I think there's merit in all that. Just trust the players. They'll do the right thing, and away we go. I know I've rambled on so much tonight, but I tell you what, treat them like adults. Let them go. They know right from wrong. They know how to take one step in front of the other. They know which direction to go. So they've got teammates around them. They'll support them. They'll do the right thing. Let them go.
I think you might need a drink after tonight, Crawford. Geez, you've been fired up tonight. I love it, though. I love the animation that you've just been providing.
How are the Hawks going? They're going no good. It's starting to really frustrate me. You know, I don't even know which direction they're going at the moment. So that's why I'm fired up tonight.
Well, at least you're not swearing like last week. Anyway, I've got some team news ahead of tomorrow night's clash between Collingwood and Gold Coast that's just come through. De Goey and Treloar back, as we know. Jaden Stevenson has been dropped again, which is the really intriguing one. And some positive news today, too, for the Pies. Steele Sidebottom and his partner welcoming their first child, Matilda. So there is hope that he might be able to return to the hub, a final transition hub in the next few weeks. Those plans are just being sorted at the moment. Crawford, that's all we have time for. Thanks again to AIA Vitality. And you go and get that drink because you deserve it tonight.
I'm fired up. OK, we'll see you next week. Come on, coaches, lift. One more game to go. Fire up your team. Give the supporters a bit of hope. That's what it's all about. Have a great night.